Hi there. This is going to be a little side quest in my exploration of React and React Native and Redux, thanks to a wonderful comment from a Sophie Idromenos. She actually told me that there is an API out there called Recipe Puppy that is basically perfect for what we're trying to do in this project. So in this little video, I'm actually going to refactor my code away from the MashShape API, and we're going to be using Recipe Puppy. It should be short and sweet. It's a bit of a deviation from dealing with navigation and some other topics, but I think this is a refactor worth doing given that getting an API key isn't exactly fun. So let's get started. If you check out my GitHub repo from the last set of videos, you should notice that there is an app container class. In fact, the entry point into the application comes from index.ios.js. We have a provider, we have the app container. We talked a little bit about how Redux likes to organize things. Then from the app container, we're just rendering a home component. So again, that's pretty straightforward. And in our case, going back to some of the concepts we looked at in the Redux introduction, we know that we're going to be dealing with the API class and also the actions. So let's take a look at the API.js. I'm actually going to delete my MashShape key because I don't need that anymore. And we're going to be moving over to Recipe Puppy, which is just www.recipepuppy.com. And their API is a little different. So instead of returning just JSON and leaving it at that, I'm going to add another promise or successful promise, which is going to be a .then. So assuming we can transform this into JSON, then we will take the response from the JSON, and then we will simply return JSON.results, which will give us the recipes. And actually, before I get any further along in this, I'm going to just fire up Tmux so I can have a few tabs going at the same time. Go back to where I was. Probably a good idea to start React Native so I can work with something real. Go to my simulator. Again, if this is all looking a little bit strange, I suggest that you take a look at some of the other videos that I've done already where I go into how you can set up React Native step by step. Hold on one second. I always lose this. Okay, let's try 75%. Nope, too big. Let's try 33%. That's too small. Let's try 50%. Okay, just right. So I refresh again. I should have the debugger running. Do I have the debugger running? It appears that I have the debugger running. So when I refresh, it loads. And then when I type in onions here and I hit fetch recipes, it should do something, and I'm getting an unexpected token at position 0, which is probably because my route hasn't been changed yet. So we've changed the base API class so that it's pointing to the right endpoint. Now we need to go to the actual actions recipes JSON or JS file, sorry. And now we're not dealing with an ingredients argument, we're just dealing with I. And I believe this is going to be n equals 1, or no, actually it's p equals 1. All right, and then the last but not least portion of this is, of course, to change the route to be/API and a question mark, because question marks are fun. All right, now let's refresh this again. Onions, searching, boom, okay. So we're getting something back. However, it's not happy. And if we look here under our action, we're getting set search recipes, so we know we're coming back with a data structure, and actually we're getting 10 results back. However, for some reason we're only getting 1, and then we're getting this warning. And this is a really helpful warning because it's telling us that we should have a unique key prop. Now, we handled this warning in a previous video. If we look at our home component where this is rendered, we can see that the key is actually reliant on the recipe ID. Now in the old API, we had a recipe ID, and this was passed through. However, if we look at what we're getting from this new API, we can see that there is no ID. However, there's a hyperlink reference to a whole bunch of different websites. And so in the interests of just having something that is unique, I'm actually going to use the href as the unique key in my store, in my reducer. So going to my reducer, I have a recipe reducer that is expecting an action called setSearchedRecipes, and it relies on an ID for setting the recipe in its hash table. So in fact, the ID is fundamental to the way the data structure is working and to all downstream representations of that data structure. So in this case, I'm going to say ID is actually going to be recipe.href. And then we're just going to do this. And then I'm going to do object.assign, which is like a merge with an empty data structure and then ID. So now I should have an ID. Refresh this again. If I say onions and bacon, an excellent combination, might I add, we should be able to search, and we're going to get a whole bunch of results. Now the last thing, of course, is we're not getting the images. And if I look at the state of my object here, I can see that now these are essentially keys in my data structure, and the image reference is now thumbnail. And I believe that has also changed. So if I go here, I'm going to see that the recipe image in the old data structure, or the old version, was .image. So I'm just going to change that to .thumbnail. Refresh this again. Onions and cabbage, still a tasty option. And we are getting some data back. Again, the point here is to show the different layers of the architecture. In the next video, I'm going to cover how we can introduce React Native's Navigation Experimental library, and we'll take it from there.